I want to get into this Steve Nash MVP debate thing because it was something I was watching it and it came up again, and it kind of reminded me of what Kendrick Perkins was saying when he got into his little spat with JJ Redick on First Take, and he mentioned Steve Nash, Dirk, Larry Bird. He mentioned those MVPs, but mainly the Steve Nash one, where he felt like the criteria for MVP around the NBA seems to change every year, almost like the sports media and some of the people who have votes for NBA awards, they kind of change the narrative every year to fit a particular person that they feel like deserves the MVP. And he said that the goalposts move. I'm gonna get into all that, man. I'm gonna explain to you what I think about that 05-06 MVP for Nash and the 04-05 MVP for Nash, because he got back-to-back MVPs. And I'm gonna go over if I really think Kobe Bryant deserved the MVP or not. And I'm gonna let you know why I think Chauncey Billups actually was more deserving than Steve Nash and Kobe Bryant. So stick around. You want to stick around to the end of this video so you can hear my thoughts on that. But before I even get started, make sure you hit the thumbs up on your way in. Make sure you hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. And if you're watching this from Facebook, head over to YouTube, give us a like and a subscribe there, and continue to watch from there. So without further ado, I'm going to play for you what Kendrick Perkins said, just a small clip of some of the things he pointed out. And then I'm going to get into my case on why Chauncey Billups probably should have been the MVP that season.
When it comes down to moving the goalposts for certain individuals to win it, again, is it Uchiwale or is it one Mike that wasn't top 10 in scoring? We moved the goalposts so much. So that's my whole thing. Is like, why we move the goalposts for certain people and then for others, we don't. Is he not getting the love that Steve Nash was getting when he was in Phoenix for as the MVP candidate or winning or being the MVP front runner?
So that was his comment about we don't even know what the criteria is. He said, is it Uchiwale? Is it one Mike? Like, what is it going to be? Are we going to be going off offensive win shares? Are we going to be going advanced analytics? Are we going with storyline, narrative? Are we going with the big number? Are we going with best player on the best team? Like, what is the criteria? Because it seems to move every single year. Right. And what he's saying is very suspicious on when it moves. Like when the goalpost moves, it's very convenient to support someone that more than likely probably wouldn't win it if the grounds was leveled. So I'm gonna just use this Steve Nash back-to-back MVP as an example to kind of support what Kendrick Perkins was saying about the goalpost moving. And if you remember Steve Nash's first MVP, right? I'll pull it up. Yeah, this is the voting. This is how it stacked out toward the end. You see Nash and Shaquille O'Neal. They're 1 and 2. They're the only ones that really was getting first place votes. Nash got 65. Shaq got 58 first place votes. So it was a close race for Shaq. That was Shaq's first year in Miami, if I believe. So according to the voters, Steve Nash and Shaquille O'Neal were the only 2 real candidates in the entire NBA that year. But we know Dirk Nowitzki, he finished in 3rd place. He had a serious case. So did Tim Duncan, and then, it probably stops in there for 04. But I did want to let you know about 2 things. I circled Amari Stoudemire's name, and I circled Sean Marion's name, who were teammates of Steve Nash on the Phoenix Suns. I think that's real significant that you have 2 teammates who actually got MVP consideration seriously from at least 1 or 2 voters. I think that was interesting. If you look at Amari Stoudemire averaging 26 points a game, 9 rebounds, that's significant, right? His numbers actually look better than Steve Nash. Steve Nash averaged 15 points, 11 assists. If you round up, it's 16 points and 12 assists, right? So 16 and 12 for your point guard. But your primary scorer was Amari Stoudemire, and he was averaging 26 points and 9 rebounds. I think that's very significant. And then you have Sean Marion, who was getting you 20 points a game. So you had 20 point per game scorers on your team, and they both outscored you, right? So if it wasn't the numbers for Steve Nash that year, then what was it for Steve Nash? What made him go over the top and win the MVP? And if you look to the right, I got the Suns circled in red, and you see that they won 62 games, which was the league best that year, right? So if you're a point guard, you're averaging 16 and 12. You got two players on your team who also got MVP votes, who both averaged more than you, right? Who put up more numbers than you. But you was the head of the snake, and we obviously know Steve Nash was the head of the snake. He was the engine that made that Phoenix Suns offense go and Mike D'Antoni's system. So we know Steve Nash was probably, he definitely was the engine. And you can make the argument he was the best player there as well. So we're not going to pretend like he wasn't, but we do have to point out that he wasn't the teammate that had the better numbers. Amari Stoudemire was, and then Shawn Marion was, and then Steve Nash was, right? But the record was 62-20, great record that was for number one in the league, right? 62 wins was number one in the league. So what helped Steve Nash in 04-05 for his first MVP was that he was the engine for the number one offense in the league, who also had the number one record in the league. So despite him not having the numbers, what helped him was the storyline of, you are the engine, you are the head of the snake, you make this thing go, and you have the best record and the best offense. So that's what helped Steve Nash win in 04. Shaquille O'Neal, who won 3 less games, who had, let's look at Shaquille O'Neal's number. He was, not huge numbers, 23 points a game, 10 rebounds, 2 blocks. He was Shaq, but he was also in Miami, coming out of the Lakers and playing with D Wade. D Wade, if you see him at number 8, he had MVP consideration as well, but he didn't have 2 guys that got MVP consideration like Steve Nash did. So Shaquille O'Neal, I wouldn't say that he had a great case. I would probably agree. If you was watching the league back then and seeing what Phoenix was doing, it was kind of like the first year that Stephen Curry and the Warriors broke out into this great offense. It was kind of that. So imagine what the Warriors did and how they caught everybody by surprise with how they ran their offense. And look at Stephen Curry, but imagine him not scoring 30 points a game like Steph Curry. Imagine him scoring half of that. That's what that was for Steve Nash watching it. You seen Phoenix doing their thing, and that was an amazing thing. Barbosa coming off the bench, he kept the thing going. It was just a good change of pace for him coming off the bench. They had Joe Johnson, who was a great 3-point shooter and a great scorer. What he did, he went to Atlanta and turned into a perennial all-star as a number one leading the team. So you got this secret weapon, this number one, that's also in your lineup with 2 guys, Amari Stoudemire and Shawn Marion, who was getting MVP consideration, who was averaging over 20 and 10, right? You have that. Then you have Barbosa off the bench. Then you got Joe Johnson, who's a number one. Then you got Quentin Richardson off the bench, who was leading the league in 3-point percentage and probably 3-point attempts and makes that year as well. Won a 3-point contest that year as well. You got all this on your roster, right? And the storyline helped you out because what we seen with our eyes was a great offense, and what we connected that to was the story of the reason why this offense is even existing and going that way is because of Steve Nash. So we can ignore the numbers. We can just look at the results of they won 62 games. Their offense is number one, and Steve Nash is the reason why. And when you look at Amari Stoudemire and Shawn Marion, these great players, we're explaining it away by saying they wouldn't be this good if it wasn't for Steve Nash. Steve Nash is making them that good, right? So that was the story with Steve Nash. And Whether it's true or not, that's a debate for another day. But I will say, I believe, based on what we're seeing right here on all the other candidates, I believe Steve Nash deserved that 04 MVP for sure. But if we say Steve Nash deserved it, and we're saying it's not based on the amazing numbers, it's based on the storyline and the record, then we have to look at 05. It's the exact same scenario. As a matter of fact, look at 05, look at 04, 05, look at on the right side, the Suns, 62 wins, and then look on the left side, you see the Pistons. We kind of ignored that because Shaq was number 2 in MVP voting. Nobody on the Pistons was even getting a vote, right? But they won 54 games. So that's what is that? 4th best in the league, right? So behind the Suns, and then the Heat and Spurs was tied at number 2. So they're number 2 and 3, and then you got the Pistons at number 4, right? So just look at that scenario: 54 wins for the Pistons, 62 wins for the Suns. The very next year, it's the exact opposite. It was flip-flop. The Suns, you see them on the left with 54 wins, right? You see the Pistons with the best record in the league with 64 wins. So they won 2 more games than what the Suns won the year before. So what was the fallout for the MVP that year? And did the goalpost move like Kendrick Perkins said the goalpost usually moves? Because what the goalpost was at last season was number 1 record in the league, number 1 offense, and the head of the snake was Steve Nash, right? So when you look at number 1 record in the league for the Pistons, they didn't have a number 1 offense. That was middle of the pack with their offense, but the defense was number 1, right? And the engine that helped the Pistons offense go, and a guy who also made second team all defensive player that year, right, was Chauncey Billups, right? So Chauncey Billups, if you look at his numbers, he finished 5th in the MVP race. Nash got the MVP, of course. LeBron James, Dirk, Kobe was 2, 3, and 4 right behind him. And a lot of people like to make an argument for Kobe Bryant for this MVP. But if you've seen my video, which I'm going to leave the link in the description for my criteria for MVP, and if you can look right there in the middle where it says the most valuable player, and in parentheses the Michael Jordan trophy, since the trophy is named after Michael Jordan, I did a deep dive into what it took for Michael Jordan to win his MVPs, and I came up with a criteria that I think is really good. So if you want to see that video, click on it. I'll leave the link in the description, and then I'll leave also you have an opportunity to click on it after this video. But in a nutshell, what I said was excellence on offensive end, excellence on the defensive end. That makes you a complete player. That makes you valuable on both ends of the floor for your team. And then team success. So you do have to have excellence offensively. But that's the name of the game. You got to score to win, right? But it's everyone's job on the court to be able to defend and stop their opponent from scoring, right? So you have to do both. You can't be one-dimensional. Now, if every candidate was one-dimensional, then cool. I don't mind a one-dimensional player winning MVP. But when there's an option for a player that's playing both ends of the floor at an excellent level, it's very hard for me to choose a player that's playing one end excellent over the other player that's playing both ends excellent if they both have the team success, right? So in this case, Steve Nash, 100% is excellent on offense and 100% is horrible on defense. He gives you nothing on defense. There's no value, right? So how do you take that player and then you look at Chauncey Billups, who is at the top of the screen, 04 and 05 and 05, 06 made second team all defense, right? Look at the names he's amongst. Canby, shot blocker. Tim Duncan, shot blocker. Garnett, shot blocker and great defender on the ball. Tayshaun Prince, great defender. All right. You got Kobe and J. Kidd, Ben Wallace, Andre Karlenko, Bruce Bowen. Known defenders, Meta World Peace. Known defenders. Chauncey Billups is in that conversation. That's 10 names. That's 11 names because they got Kobe and Kidd tied for first team. But that's 11 names. Chauncey Billups, at worst, that season was the 11th best defender out of hundreds of players. Right? He was the 11th best defender over D Wade, over LeBron. That none of these guys made all team defense that year. Chauncey Billups did. He was playing phenomenal defense. On top of the fact he had game winner after game winner. He earned the name Mr. Big Shot. I mean, he was just destroying and carrying the Pistons team as a point guard and as a leader, as the head of the snake. Right? He was doing that. And if you look at his averages, he was averaging 18 points and 9 assists. Remember, Steve Nash, when he won his MVP, was averaging 16 points, 12 assists. Chauncey Billups is averaging more points, 18, 9 assists. He's averaging 3 less assists, but he's averaging really 19. So he's averaging 3 more points, but 3 less assists. So, I mean, it was he really did the same blueprint that Nash did. I'm leading my team. I'm a floor drainer. I'm leading the offense. I'm putting up 19 points a game and 9 assists. But the difference between him and Nash is that he was locking up the best offensive player if he was a wing player. So when it came to who was going to guard Kobe, it was either going to be between Tayshaun Prince or Chauncey Billups. And when it came to who was going to guard Kidd, it was going to be Chauncey Billups. When it came to who was going to guard Wade, it was going to be Chauncey Billups or Tayshaun Prince. I mean, he was a great defender, right? I can't stress that enough, right? So imagine Nash was able to win MVP while having 2 MVP candidates on his team, while playing 0 defense. But what he had going for him is he was 16 and 12 for points and assists, number 1 record in the league, number 1 offense. Well, the Pistons were 64 wins, number 1 team in number 1 record in the league. He was 19 and 9 for points and assists. He was second team all defense, and his team was number 1 in defense in the league. So what he did well led to a number 1 ranking on defense. What Nash did well led to a number 1 ranking on offense. But the only thing is, Billups was doing the same exact thing on offense that Nash was doing, but added the defensive end to it, right? So why wasn't he higher up on the list as a candidate? And just to mention the Kobe Bryant thing, the Lakers was a 7th seed that year, right? When you look at my criteria for MVP, you're going to have a slim to no chance of winning MVP out of the 7th seed. I just don't believe in it. Right, it just don't even make sense to be in the 7th, sitting at the 7th seed and be getting MVP votes. I don't mind you getting some votes, but you're not going to get a lot of first place votes, in my opinion. Right, there's better candidates if you're sitting in the 7th seed. But Kobe Bryant had the monster numbers: 35 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals. You know, so he had monster numbers. But sitting at the 7th seed, the team success was not there. Did he make first team defense? Yes. First team offense? Yes. So he was first team offense, first team defense. He had everything going for him, the excellence and the success on offense and defensive end. The team success was there, but it was players more successful for their team. So Kobe Bryant wouldn't have been a candidate for me 05-06. So I don't believe in the notion that Kobe Bryant should have won the MVP over Steve Nash, but I do believe that Chauncey Billups should have won the MVP over Steve Nash, because the precedence that was set the year before was number 1 team in the league, best player on that team, excellent numbers, but he did it on both ends, or well, not in Nash's case, he did it on 1 end, but Billups did it on 2 ends, so he took it up a notch. He won more games than Nash, and he did it on both ends, and he scored more points. He took it up a notch than what Steve Nash did. So how did Steve Nash end up winning it again? Well, I'm gonna tell you. Let's go back to that record, right? So here he is at 54 wins, and the Pistons 10 whole games above them with 64 wins, and they're number one in the league. How come that narrative didn't work for Chauncey Billups? Well, if you old, well, I ain't gonna say I'm old. If you've been watching basketball long enough, and you remember some of the talking heads and how because if you listen to enough of these guys talk, they tell you exactly what their thoughts are, and they kind of shape the narratives and stuff like that. So you get to hear exactly probably what they're talking about behind closed doors and how they're swaying and deciding some of these things. And what I remember from all the talking heads then was when Chauncey Billups' name was coming up in the MVP discussion, because obviously, man, his name have to be there. They're the best record in the league, and he was performing so well, and he was hitting game winners night after night and clutch shots and big shots. They explained it away by saying, well, we can't really consider Chauncey Billups for the MVP because he has too much help. So they said that Rasheed Wallace, Tayshaun Prince, Rip Hamilton, and Ben Wallace was too much help. Billups has too much help. Now remember, the year before, Nash had a guy averaging 26 and a guy averaging 20, and they both was in the MVP discussion. Both was all-stars. And they didn't say that Nash had too much help. They said that the only reason why they're playing that good is because of Nash. You see how that was different? You see that little twist? Oh, no. That's not too much help. They're playing like that because of Nash. Because Nash is getting 12 assists, he's spoon feeding them all their points. That's not too much help. That's him helping them. But on Billups' side, he had too much help. We can't give it to him. He got too much help. But he had not one player that was in the MVP discussion other than him. Not Ben Wallace, not Rasheed, not Rip, not Tayshaun. None of them was in the MVP discussion. This man Nash had two guys in the MVP discussion. So that was the first thing that they kind of explained away. The second thing was this particular year, Amari Stoudemire had only played 3 games. He got hurt. So but Boris Diaw stepped up, and he doubled his production and points and rebounds, in minutes and everything. Like, Boris Diaw was balling out, and you can try to Google some of this, but if you wasn't watching the league at that time, you have no idea on how Boris Diaw stepped his game up in Amari Stoudemire's absence. Like, you have no idea. The Googling the numbers is not going to help you. Right? You had to watch it. You had to watch what he was doing. He stepped up. They had Tim Thomas stepping up off the bench. And Sean Marion stepped his game up and averaged more across the board. Nash stepped his game up a little bit. He averaged a little bit more. So everybody kind of stepped up. But the fact that he lost his number 2 in Stoudemire is the reason why everyone said, well, we can excuse the fact that the Pistons have the best record in the league, and we cannot really consider Billups over Nash because Nash lost his number 2. And that sounds very familiar to when Jokic won his second MVP. Michael Porter Jr. Was playing. Was he playing? Michael Porter Jr. had back surgery, and Jamal Murray had the ACL. That he tore his ACL in the playoffs. So he lost his number 2. Jamal Murray was gone, and he didn't have the best record in the league, right? What he did was average close to a triple-double, but he was sitting at like the number 5 or number 6 seed. Now, remember, I told you, I would not consider Kobe Bryant for MVP sitting at the number 7 seed. I won't. That's just my rule. I won't do it. But 2 guys that I think the NBA did an injustice is by giving Westbrook an MVP because he averaged a triple-double, and he was sitting at the number 6 or number 7 seed for OKC Thunder. They made the excuse. They explained it away, made the excuse. Oh, he lost Kevin Durant. He don't have his guy. So it's okay for him to be at the number 6 seed, and it's okay for me to overlook a player who might have the best record in the league, who's playing both ends of the floor and playing excellent basketball. Let's overlook him because he's got average a triple double, even though he's sitting at the number 7 seed. So they did it for Westbrook and they did it for Jokic. So they start creating these narrative and these storylines to help you overlook a guy who's more deserving of the award and the consideration, right? So same thing with Jokic. He lost Porter Jr., he lost Murray. So it's an excuse, but that's okay for him to be sitting at the 6th or the 7th seed or the 5th seed, wherever he was at that year. Let's give him his second MVP in a row. And that's what Kendrick Perkins was talking about at the beginning. This goalpost move is a sliding scale. It's a slippery slope. We can't catch it. You know, the media can change the narrative however and whenever they want to favor a guy that they just feel like, you know, I think we should give it to him. And the motivation behind it, I think people got Kendrick Perkins a little bit misconstrued and mixed up because they made it strictly a race thing, and I don't think that's what the issue is. Now, is there subconscious and unconscious, you know, and is there bias involved? Sure, you know, sure. Like, you know, if it was a one female playing in the NBA, and you had female voters, whether they know it or not, they probably would favor her if she was ever in the discussion for MVP, right? You know, that happened. You know, people were like underdog stories, people like people that remind them of themselves, or you know, or people that represent them. You know, that's normal. We get that, and that can happen unconsciously or consciously, right? You know, and there's no harm, no foul. It's just human error. That's part of human error, right? But if you're really trying to have a fair and respectable process, then you have to acknowledge that human error exists, and then you have to put in safeguards to make sure that human element don't play out too much in the decision-making process of how you award players and people. And I think in these cases, when you start changing the narrative every year based on what it looks like, hey, the criteria is changing this year. This player had more win shares than this player, so let's give it to him. We have more win shares. Oh, guess what? This player lost his number 2, so you know he barely made the playoffs. He's sitting at 500, 41 and 41. But yeah, well, let's give him an MVP because he averaged a triple double. Like, you know, all that stuff is nonsense to me. So, but yeah, so in the case of Steve Nash, no, he did not deserve MVP that second year. Chauncey Billups did. Chauncey Billups 100% deserved the MVP. They stole an MVP from Chauncey Billups. They gave it to Nash. They did not steal an MVP from Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant did not deserve to be MVP sitting at a number 7 seed. It's just not the case, right? So that's my whole thought on the situation, man. Chauncey Billups had a phenomenal year that year, 19-9, best record in the league, all team defense, best defense in the league, and he was the head of the snake for that team. I think he got robbed, man. So for what it's worth, Chauncey Billups, man, you the real MVP for 2005, 2006. You heard it here on Man Down podcast. If you disagree, let me know. Let me know why I got it wrong in the comment section. Let me know if this doesn't make sense at all. If you think Kobe deserved it, if you think Nash deserved it, or if you think somebody else like LeBron James deserved it that year, just let me know in the comments, and I'll catch y'all on the next episode.